In a world of almost 7 billion people, over 2 billion are Christian. But why are there so many different denominations? Why isn't there just one? To get a better understanding of this, we're going to have to go back to the Middle Ages of Europe, when there was one church, the Roman Catholic Church, and it was the only Christianity that existed there. In this presentation, we're going to be talking about the corruption that started to surface during the Middle Ages, the influence of the French king Philip IV, a division within the clergy, and people such as John Wycliffe, Jan Hus, and Savonarola, who were looking to reform the church. During the Middle Ages, the Roman Catholic Church was the only Christian church in Europe. The basic principles of the Roman Catholic Church were the belief in Jesus, the Bible is the Word of God, the clergies were the experts in interpreting the Bible, and the sacraments, special blessings overseen by the clergy. It was during this time that the Pope stated that access to heaven was only through the Catholic Church. Over time, its unchecked power led to corruption. Many of the popes had used excommunication to try to control the monarchs. Priests were found to be illiterate. They were supposed to interpret the Bible. How can they interpret it if they can't read it? When becoming a member of the clergy, you take a vow of chastity to abstain from sex. Many were aware that some bishops, cardinals, and even some popes had broke their vow of chastity and had fathered children. Many believed that the clergy should dedicate their lives to poverty. With the influx of money coming in from every person in Europe, it was hard to avoid the temptation of greed. Another problem that arose from the Middle Ages was the selling of indulgences. Indulgences were forgivenesses of sin. One could simply give the church some money to be forgiven of a sin. Oftentimes, clergy members were promoted not based on merit, but based on wealth. And finally, the remains of the saints were kept under lock and key and shown only to those who would pay to see them. An external problem for the church was King Philip IV of France. He was desperate for money to fight a war against England, so Philip taxed the church. When Pope Boniface threatened him with excommunication, Philip had the Pope kidnapped, and shortly after the Pope's release, he died. The next Pope also refused to work with King Philip. He only lasted a year. He died, possibly from being poisoned. Finally, Pope Clement decided to work with Philip, either out of fear or out of previous feudal agreements. Clement then moved the papacy to France, and for the next 68 years, the French monarchy directly controlled the Pope and the church policy. This upset people and monarchs of the rest of Europe. After 68 years and 7 popes appointed by French cardinals, the cardinals of Rome sought to fix the problem by appointing a new pope. Not to be outmaneuvered, the French cardinals appointed their own pope. There could only be one pope, right? Both popes were in for a bitter fight for control of the church. They even excommunicated each other. To add to the confusion, a third pope was elected by cardinals of Pisa. That's right, 3 popes. This bitterly divided Europe and severely damaged the reputation of the church. During the papal schism, there were reformers who were criticizing the church. One of them was an Oxford professor in England named John Wycliffe. Now, Wycliffe believed that you could achieve salvation by reading the Bible, that the clergy and the sacraments were unnecessary. Wycliffe was directly attacking the foundations of the church. So Wycliffe started translating the Bible from Latin into English. Those who followed Wycliffe were called the Lollards. They were rounded up and arrested. Many died in jail or were burned at the stake. So upset was the church that even after Wycliffe's death, they dug up his body and burned it at the stake. Another critic of the church was a man named Jan Hus. He lived in an area called Bohemia. He openly criticized the affluence and wealth of some clergy members within the church. He also complained that the services were in Latin, though the people he ministered to only spoke Czech. Lastly, he felt indulgences were corrupting the church, that people who were rich shouldn't be able to buy their way into heaven. He was arrested and convicted of heresy. They burned him at the stake. Other Bohemian reformers took up his cause, and eventually they broke away from the Catholic Church and formed their own denomination. Finally, in the merchant city of Florence, a monk named Savonarola will openly accuse the church of corruption, immoral behavior, and encourage the burning of books. The church was reaping the benefits of new trade from Asia. The Renaissance movement was flourishing throughout Italy, and here's a man who saw only corruption. Pope Alexander tried to convince him to change his ways, but eventually sent the Inquisition after him. They arrested him. They tortured poor Savonarola until he confessed to being a heretic. He too was burned at the stake. These early reformers did little to change the church, but they highlighted the corruption within the church and laid the foundation for future reformers like Martin Luther, John Calvin, and King Henry VIII.